Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Business Innovators Radio. This is your host, Constant Taylor. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, and they're going to share some very exciting information with us. So, if you're looking to increase your personal and professional effectiveness, then you've come to the right place. Our special guest today is Colleen Sweeney. Colleen has been speaking professionally for over 10 years, and the content that she primarily speaks on is patients' fear. In fact, she is the nation's expert on patients' fear. She has spoken both nationally and internationally, and she's based out of Tampa, Florida. Colleen has a book called 160 Ways to Empathize. Colleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I didn't call you Kathleen, did I, by chance?
No, but I have a sister, Kathleen. Nope, you got it. Colleen Sweeney.
Okay, well, tell Kathleen I said hello for me, please.
Well, thank you.
I'd like to kick off the show by asking you if you could tell the listeners a little bit about your business and how you help your clients become more effective.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I've been a nurse for just about 35, I guess closer to 40 years now. And so worked in healthcare my entire life. And probably about 10 years ago, I held the position as patient experience officer or director of customer service, it used to be called, in a Midwest hospital. And there was one day when I met a lady in the hallway, and she said that she was going to have surgery that day. And so I put her in a wheelchair and I took her to admitting. And I was watching, standing back watching, and I noticed her hands were shaking. And when she was done with the admitting clerk, I said, "Are you all right?" And she said, "Oh, no." She said, "The last 3 times I was at your hospital, the person that I was here with, they died."
Wow.
And then I know that was not a good thing to hear. And I started to apologize and say, when it comes to quality, we're one of the best. And she said, "No, you did a good job." She said, "But when I pull into the parking lot, it's the only thought I have in my head." And at that point, probably 30 years in healthcare as a nurse, I had never given thought to what was inside the head of the patient. And that every patient we care for is like a prisoner of their past experiences with healthcare or at a particular organization, and they bring all those past experiences with them. So for me, it was an aha moment, and it started a 3-year journey where I interviewed over 1,000 patients about their biggest fear in hospitals, and then followed it up with a second study about what patients fear in medical practices.
Wow. Now, with my kind of goofy thinking, when she came there and she said, "I was here 3 times and 3 people died," I would think, okay, we need to keep you out of the hospital because you're causing our patients to check out. But that's just me. That's just me. So this is so fascinating. You know, we speak to a lot of people, but this is the first time that we've actually spoken to a fear expert. So how do you connect with them on that level, and what things do you do to alleviate their fear, or do you just analyze it?
Excellent question. What usually happens is this: I speak to healthcare audiences usually 2 or 3 days a week. I'm in front of a hospital or a healthcare conference, and I've asked hundreds of audiences at this point, why do you think we don't routinely ask patients what their biggest fear or concern around their hospitalization is? And they will always say the same thing. First, they will say, well, we don't have time to ask. Secondly, they'll say, well, what if we ask and we don't know what resources are available? Which is a great response. Some will say we don't care enough to ask the question. And so that's a majority of the responses that I get. And so the work that we do with organizations is, first of all, teaching them how to ask the question. And so it's really an exercise in empathy. And it's not like on an intake form where you say, or now it's a computer screen form, but anyway, you would say to patients, well, any allergies, any fears, any past hospitalizations, because that's sometimes how we ask.
Okay.
But we teach organizations, how do you really connect with the patient? How do you ask that question in a way that is truly empathic? And then we build the resources into the electronic medical record. And hospitals are like cities. And they really do have all the resources that are available. And as clinicians, we don't often know what those resources are. And so many times their biggest fear is, how am I going to pay for this? Or what kind of bill am I racking up? Where we can electronically send a message to finance that someone will come here and talk to you about a payment plan or whatever it would be. And so we put the resources electronically at their fingertips. The other thing is that we now know within many specialties and subspecialties what patients fear, and the fears are different from specialty to specialty. So if you're going to have general surgery or abdominal surgery, your fears would be way different, say, than if you were in labor and present at the hospital. So what we do is we teach organizations how to ask the questions, put resources at their fingertips, and just raise awareness that 96% of all patients have some fear around their hospitalization, and to raise awareness that we never ask.
Okay. So what does your primary business look like where you would say, I can help this organization? What's the size, the scale?
Very good. Well, I started in 2010. I was asked by one of the nation's largest think tanks. It's called the Barrel Institute. I was asked if I would keynote their conference and present my findings. And so I did, not having any idea of the interest that it was going to, that it would spur. And so after I presented at the conference, I started to keynote, was asked to keynote many large healthcare conferences and then individual hospitals. And a keynote really doesn't change a culture at all, although, sometimes it will raise awareness and people will say, I never looked at a patient the same way after I've heard you speak. But then what happened was organizations said, how can we create an experience knowing that patients have fears? And so I developed a workshop and some proprietary tools that I use in teaching healthcare organizations how to recreate the experience for patients at very critical touch points in their care. So that was step number 2. And step number 3 was people wanted me to downright consult. And so I have been consulting. We do lots of skills workshops around best practices for nurses, such as hourly rounding and bedside shift reports. And we do video coaching also. So that's basically what the bulk of my business is. I would say it's probably 75% speaking and maybe 25% coaching and consulting.
Okay. What are some of the popular misconceptions about your services, and how do you dispel those misconceptions?
I think that one of the things is that hospitals will have something called leadership development institutes or leadership development days where they gather all their leaders together, usually 4 times a year, and bring a keynoter in or a subject matter expert in to talk to their leaders, thinking that it's going to change behaviors. And a 60 or 90-minute keynote does not change culture and doesn't change behaviors. And I think that that's one, or I should say very rarely changes behaviors. It will not change a culture. And so that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, although people will say, oh my God, you're a great speaker, a great keynoter. It was thought-provoking. It was fun. It went by in a hurry. It really doesn't have the impact that things like the consecutive workshop does.
Okay. And what has been your proudest moment that you've had since you've been on this journey fear, understanding fear in the patients?
Well, you might think it's when, so I belong to the National Speakers Association, naturally. And you may think that probably, for me, one of the biggest things is when you land a huge speaking engagement. And you would think that was it. But for me, it's when I get emails from people who have been in my audiences or through my workshop and say, we have totally redesigned and transformed the patient experience because of the work that you do. And knowing that I impact, I guess, thousands of patients or countless numbers of patients, where as a bedside nurse, I can only impact, as an ICU nurse, maybe two in the course of the day, where here I have the ability to impact, thousands or countless numbers of patients. I guess I really will never know how many. So that to me is a great day when an organization says, we've moved our scores and our metrics, our employees and providers are engaged once again, and thank you. So anyway, that's probably a great day for me.
So, going back, can you tell us a little bit about your background? I know that you said that you started out as a nurse, correct?
That is true. I went to a 3-year nursing program when I was right out of high school, and that was a time when 3-year nursing programs were very popular. So, you graduate with an associate's degree and a diploma, and it probably wasn't until I was in my 40s when I went back for a business degree, and then followed it up with a master's certificate in project management. So my background is not totally in nursing; it's in business also. And so that probably has been very helpful. And when it comes to the speaking world, probably the thing that has been most beneficial is that I did probably about a 6-year stint doing improvisational comedy. And that probably, of all of my credentials, has probably aided me the most when it comes to speaking, connecting, and imagining, to imagine the possibilities when presenting to audiences.
That is so fascinating to me because you're the 5th person that I have interviewed in the past 30 days that has a comedic or stand-up background. I had 2 people that actually came from Second City background, where they do the improvisational comedy. So
absolutely,
and they both say, and they all say the same thing, that has helped them more quicker on their feet to think out problems and solutions and to stay on a positive path, because in improvisation, when you say no, it actually kills everything. So it's yes and. So that's
one of the major rules. Absolutely, and where in life can that not be helpful? I mean, it's just this wonderful lesson for life, and so it's probably one of the most valuable experiences that I ever had.
That is awesome. Business, health, and comedy. What a power, and project management. So it seems like you do, I'm sure you're traveling all the time, all over the place. Do you feel spread too thin? Do you feel like you need to restructure to be more effective? How is this impacting your organization?
Wow. Well, we work with a very small virtual team, and I do all of the speaking, all of the presenting, and then we have a team that does the coaching. I do much of coaching, but the consulting and skills training part, we have a team that will do that. And so, yes, it's absolutely exhausting. But speaking, and I can't, I don't know outside of my industry, outside of healthcare, but speaking is very, very, how should I say, predictable. And so spring and fall are my crazy busy months. And then I will work very, very little as far as travel and keynoting in the summer months. It's probably, they're my slower months. And then in the month of December, after the first week, I work very little. So, yes, we probably do anywhere between 120 and 150 keynotes and workshops a year.
Okay.
And that's a lot.
Absolutely. That's quite a bit. You've got a lot of energy.
I do.
Now with the final minute that we have, could you leave the listeners with one thought, concept, where if they don't receive anything else or have not taken anything else away from this interview, this is one thing that you would like to leave them with?
Oh, my heavens, I'm so glad you asked that. You did not ask the big question that I was waiting for. Here it is. What's the number one fear of patients in the hospital? And the number one fear will surprise you. In fact, it surprises healthcare audiences every day. And it's that by far the number one fear is the fear of infection, that patients will leave the hospital with something they did not come in with, and it may mean eventual death from them. And so if I'm not quite sure if your listeners, some of them may have healthcare backgrounds, but certainly everyone will get a chance to be a patient at one time in their life. And never, ever hesitate to say to a care provider, have you washed your hands before touching me? That may be a lifesaver. There you go.
Excellent. Awesome. And that's why I asked that question, because sometimes we'll have an interview and the person maybe 2 or 3 hours later will say, hey, I didn't get a chance to convey this. So I make sure that I say that. So whatever I may have missed, it can come through. So thank you very much for articulating that. Now, if the listeners would like to find out more about your business and possibly utilize your services, what's the best way to get in contact with your organization?
Oh, patientfears.com or SweeneyHealthcareEnterprises.com.
Okay, excellent.
They type Patient Fears in their browser. I'm the only thing that will come up.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that very insightful information and taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the show. I really appreciate it, and I know that the listeners do too.
Very good. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.